Hi, AAHANA. I'm not sure how to say your name. This is Grandpa Honesty Guy, David Jeremiah Bowden. I grew up in a beach town of Ocean City, New Jersey. When I was 18, I moved to San Diego, but I discovered San Francisco on the way to San Diego. And I lived in Santa Cruz and San Francisco for about 4 years. I was part of the extreme, brand new punk scene, questioning values and things, not against people, but rather against pointless living. And I moved to New York, I moved to London and Brighton. I had a corporate sales career in the New York, Philadelphia, and DC area. I sold fancy sailboats and fine graphic design. But in April of 1994, I was invaded by a piece of information. And the piece of information came in the form of a little book. $1,000 reward offered. If you can find a person who fulfills all the predictions in the Hebrew scriptures for the supernatural visitor of Messiah, awaited for all the human ages, a supernatural one will come. The Sibylline prophetesses, study the Sibyls. The Sibylline prophetesses were Greek prophetesses that lived outside of the Judeo-Christian Hebrew stuff. Study the true white brother in the Native American culture. There were a few prophets who had these visions of a shining white friend coming to take you to the happy hunting ground. A shining white friend. Read in the accounts of Yeshua the Transfiguration. Read each of the accounts of the Transfiguration and find that image of a shining white friend. Picture the shining white friend walking to greet the humans in the cool of the day in the garden, as written in the beginning of Genesis. If you and I were visited by a shining white form who was clearly a higher form than a human form, and we were able to talk to that form and say, hey, how did you come up with light and color? And how did you make the retinal wall? And what is this and what is that? A blanket of blindness and darkness has come over the entire human race. The reason why I'm making this recording is that you have become one of the most important voices that I've seen in the public. The Grandpa Honesty Guy shtick is, we're going to talk about sex and spirits. If there is a very active spirit realm and you are able to be deceived and led off course by spirits that want you to be self-destructive and be focused more on entertainments or your own personal little small-minded idolatries, success or whatever, if there are spirit beings that can lead you off the course of peace, how do you discern them? And how do you remove them from your presence? And if they're constantly trying to get control, a measure of control over your mind and your emotions, how do you stay refreshed and free? And I was a child growing up as a male human being, and I did not have parents and elders talking to me about the physical feel-good and actually how to enjoy saying no and anticipating the concept of the marriage bed, or walking in a way that we are enjoying our singleness. And you have been an example to many people of how to simply enjoy your freshness and your singleness, that you're not blending with another person. So I am interested in having a dialogue with you. You can have a look at my YouTube channels, which are Grandpa Honesty Guy, Family Honesty Workshop, Good communion for good family. Channeling positive energy. David Jeremiah Bowden. The Alfred Lintner Foundation. And one that I'm developing, which will become a book, called The Clitoris and Christianity. A bold, cheerful tour or view of special, wonderful, hidden things that are just part of life. The Clitoris and Christianity is a beginning presentation of mine. You can call me direct, 863-262-8181. You can send me an email, grandpahonestyguy@gmail.com. And I am really eager to assist in your development. If you actually try to get a copy of this, this has a bizarre, strange story to it. The Messiah in Both Testaments by Fred John Meldau. This was produced on a web press, like a newsprint press, way back in the 60s. And an organization called Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry were trying to find the publisher, to get permission to reprint the book. The book has been reprinted by Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry, and it's called The Prophets Still Speak. That book, The Prophets Still Speak, or The Messiah in Both Testaments, and also two other books, The Signature of God by Grant Jeffrey. The Signature of God by Grant Jeffrey, and Unexplained Miracles of the Bible by Grant Jeffrey. Those two books, Signature of God and Unexplained Miracles of the Bible, those are wild. The other book that is almost absolutely essential is a book by, it's actually an edited compilation by a fellow named David Berceau. It is called A Dictionary of Early Christian Beliefs. This is actually one of the most important pieces of literature next to the scriptures that I'm working with. A Dictionary of Early Christian Beliefs, David Berceau, published by Hendrickson. This is really amazing stuff. Constantine and the kings of Europe took the meetings out of the homes and put them in fancy lecture halls, outdoor amphitheaters, and temples. When the meetings were moved out of the homes and an intimate gathering of 2 or 3 families, no longer could we admit our faults before we pray. That was the rule for 300 years. We cannot try to interact with God if there's junk in our lives, if there are unaddressed issues, if we need a mediator or a peacemaker between us and a person. We cannot pray, we cannot do a nice study on this or that in the Bible, and we cannot do a worship and a celebration. First, the most important issue is constantly, what is on your conscience? Is your conscience troubled? You cannot pretend you're interacting with the highest pure spirit if there's issues that you need to resolve. So, the kings of Europe did not want their pride exposed. They were justifying killing to get into office. There's all this other crap going on that has nothing to do with the Prince of Peace, Yeshua Sar Shalom. And Christianity was basically taken over and turned into a Jesus information business that was run by a hierarchy rather than an extremely humble family who speaks just like you do. AAHANA. I use you as an example. I point you out to Christian disciples and say, this is how my parents should have behaved in raising me. This woman is actually better at being real about her own physiology and her own choices, better than all of the fancy Christian teachers that I've seen that have done all kinds of miracle signs and wonders, because they have not taken the time to help people understand how to maintain their hunger, their desire. They have not helped people learn how to maintain a purity of the soul. I'm a dancer, I'm a wordsmith, poet, songwriter, I'm a world traveler. I went to Russia when I was 16 and I lost my America mind. I toured Europe on trains in 1980. I traveled back and forth across the United States probably 6 times back and forth in cars and Greyhound buses, and I've had a lot of experience. And I've sat in universities. My parents were both, 2 of my parents were librarians and professors and social servants. My dad worked in the slums of Camden, New Jersey. My mom worked in the slums of the North Philadelphia neighborhoods. She sponsored 150 Southeast Asian refugees after the war and helped them learn how to cope with life in America. So I come from a lineage of intellectuals and spiritual servants to the community. And you are a special character. I wish to have a bridge of communication with you if I am able. If that's not possible, again, rewind and go visit my YouTube channels if you wish. Most importantly, the playlists on Grandpa Honesty Guy are probably my biggest treasure trove collected over 20 years. And also, if you type in the missing things in Christianity, you will find a series of things that I learned from 27 years of touring the church mess in America that I had hated and slandered and had nothing to do with for about 30 years. I got this strange God crash in through this funny book. And then I said, I hate Christianity, but I need to figure out what these people are doing. And I didn't have any prejudice. When I saw things that weren't quite right, I didn't even complain about it. I just took notes in my notebook, and I went off and researched and studied, and I'd be like, aha, that's how I would present this differently. So, greetings. I don't know if I'll get to talk to you, but I actually would like to help to support your life because I feel like you have created a voice, and I want your voice to grow and continue in excellence in any way that I can. I'm an old guy. I'm a dialysis patient. They poke holes in my arm and hook me up to a blood cleaning machine, and I don't know how many years I will last, but I would like to help to serve you in what you're doing because I consider what you're doing to be very fine. Good job, little sister. Keep it up. It's great what you're doing.